I think what it's sort of sewn into the person that he is this this kind of intersection of like, what drew me to the material, I think is the character for one, you know, who's a really layered individual to say the least, but exists in a film that has a ton of great action. It's really a human tale, and you know it gets gory, but it's also a really compelling drama. And I think the characters across the film, you know, its entirety and just what we're dealing with was a really interesting landscape to play in. And you know, working with other great creatives, Sean being one of them, and of course my castmates and our producers, it was just a really interesting field that I wanted to get on and be a part of. Yeah, so Tucker, Bruce Tucker is his official name, I think, though I've always, I've been less attached to his first name for some reason, but he's a shark diving boat captain. He runs tours for the public, for tourists or locals or whoever want to go out and have an experience. They can come on Tucker's Experience. You're in the galley of the boat on Tucker's Experience right now. And you know, we dive, we chum the water, and folks are able to jump in a cage with a bit of oxygen on and have an experience like no other, where they'll get to see you know, really wild, dangerous animals up close and personal, and probably have an experience like you know, they would never have anywhere else in the world. And I think Tucker is an interesting cat. He's you know, he's a wounded person. He's had a lot go on in his life, and it sort of feeds this interesting relationship that he has to the shark. He's kind of part crusader for their, you know, for their cause and to protect different species and advocate for the shark. And he also has a sort of more demented attachment to them and you know, the fear they can instill in others, and how that works for certain other desires that he allows to play out in his life. I think the biggest challenge with this role has also been the most satisfying part of the journey of, you know, my exploration with him, and that's finding like the human within something that is can seem on the page to be I don't know, it's easy to judge a character like Tucker when you read something like this, because of what he's capable in the film, capable of, and what lengths he goes to kind of get what he wants. Some pretty gruesome stuff, and he's a pretty unhinged person at certain times, you know, when we meet him throughout. But there's a vulnerability to him as well, and I think whenever I tackle someone who functions as a like villain, if you will, the key is to try and find the human within that, and I hope with Tucker that I'm able to achieve something where, you know, audiences might fear him at times, but also, you know, feel for his plight as well. Sean Byrne, our director, experience working with him has been wonderful. He's you know, he's no stranger to this space, whatever you can call this genre. I don't even really have a clear framework of it, but I guess it fits loosely into the horror world. And Sean's, you know, made some great films and some very interesting stuff in that space, and so I was excited to work with him. He's an interesting balance of someone who has a very kind of committed attachment to some specificity that he wants to achieve, and I think, you know, he often speaks in kind of images, because I think Sean really like has seen the film in his mind for a long time before we even go to camera. But within that, he's given, you know, a lot of trust to me to play and bring what it is that I want to do with it to the screen as well, and, you know, hopefully we're making something really cool. I think this film sets itself apart from others, you know, purely in the fact that kind of splits genres into, and you know, it is part creature feature, it is a bit of a slasher film, there's a beautiful human story at the center of it. And I think that's, you know, if we land the plane with this and it, you know, it makes people feel something and also gives them a bit of a fright, then we'll have achieved something really good. But it sort of goes beyond, it transcends my idea of what any of those kinds of films set out to achieve, because it's, you know, there's people getting hacked up in this thing, but it's not like just a slasher film. And, you know, sharks feature heavily, but it's not about, you know, how, it's not all about the shark. It's very like, we feel the presence of that, and there's a sort of folklore to the way we deal with that creature that I think is intelligently woven into this. And, you know, hopefully we're just pushing the boundaries on what people can come to expect from a film like this, and hopefully we surprise everyone. You know, and it's more than what people thought it might have been, and it certainly is making it. That's the experience we're having doing it, and you know, I think if we can roll it out in a way where people get more than they bargained for, then it'll be a huge success. So Tucker had an incident with sharks as a young boy. He was bitten. And for 15 minutes, he had his fame. You know, he was on the cover of every newspaper, and, you know, young boy survived shark attack, and it was kind of this, you know, local phenomenon thing that had gone down, that he'd made it out alive. But rooted within that is sort of the story of a kid who was abandoned and left to his own devices a lot. And you know, someone should have been watching him when that went down. And I think what it's sort of sewn into the person that he is this kind of intersection of, like, you know, his connection to the shark, and he sort of feels like, in a lot of ways, that they're one, that there is this kind of deep bond, because he was almost chosen, if you will. You know, it's like similar to how someone might feel if they're abducted by aliens. You know, that there's a connection now, there's a tie between worlds that I think Tucker will always have. And that it's just, you know, that's carried through his life. But he's also someone who kind of wears these deep wounds internally as well. And it's sort of spawned it's not a hatred so much, but he has trauma around that, and trauma around his relationship to his mother and his abandonment issues that are kind of woven into this story with the shark. And so, you know, the man we meet on screen is someone who defends the shark and is out there for the shark, but is also using the shark as a kind of very important tool in his process of cleansing his own pain. So Dangerous Animals, I think, you know, I think it conveys a certain image for us. You know, we know we're dealing with sharks in this film, and that's the easy reach. But I think what we unpack in this film is, you know, the dangerous animal in all of us, and we really ask ourselves who the monsters really are, and I think we're all dangerous animals when we're pushed, you know, beyond our kind of limits. And we need to either get what we want or simply survive. And so, you know, we'll see who the most dangerous of the animals is.